of our agenda, we have our data from last school year. I kind of want to start off our meeting just taking a moment to review the data and kind of look through what are our noticings from it. Do we notice any hot spots or any areas of concern, things like that?
I'm just kind of looking at fourth grade dual language.
Mm-hmm.
They're performing alarmingly at a rate alarmingly lower than our monolingual.
Yeah. Remember, our goal is for 60% of students to meet their growth goal, and then for 120% growth or more, so that we can make sure we're filling those academic gaps.
38 is awfully low.
Yeah, it's very definitely a concern. And then if we look at their STAR from last year, only 20% of those students were at meets and masters. So definitely a hot spot. Anything else that we're noticing overall?
It doesn't seem to be enough growth. Well, there is growth, it's just not enough to fill in the gaps.
Yeah, exactly. I'm noticing the same thing.
Well, and it appears that, and it may be a teacher issue, but third grade and fifth grade have a lot of growth.
Yes.
But the fourth
They do.
grade dual language, not so much. So maybe something's going on with the teaching in fourth grade dual language.
Yeah. And then I'm noticing in monolingual, our dual language kids seem to be growing at a much faster pace than our monolingual kids.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering what's happening there. So let's think through some of the root causes for that. What are some things we think might be causing? We talked about that the one fourth grade dual language class may have some significant issues, but what are some other things that we're noticing may be causing some of this lack of growth?
Could it be that teachers are not tracking their data between assessments?
Yeah, I know. I haven't seen any kind of formal data tracking process either.
And like doing formative assessments throughout the unit to see those high priority skills that maybe they're missing, and then they're waiting till the end of the unit.
Exactly. So we may even want to send out a survey to teachers and see, like, why are we not tracking data? Why are we not creating those formative assessments? Is it a lack of comfort, or is it a lack of understanding when to assess, things like that?
And are the students aware of the success criteria?
Yeah.
Like, how do they know when they've gotten it
Yeah,
right?
that's a great point. How are we communicating that to students as well?
Mm-hmm.
So how do you think we can address some of those concerns? Obviously, we're not tracking data, so we need to start tracking data.
Mm-hmm.
What are some ways you think that we could start kind of being strategic with that?
Well, Taryn, you mentioned maybe there's something going on with instruction.
Yeah.
So maybe we need to plan for reteach opportunities.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, that's a great,
And I think going a step further of like practicing and discussing like what should that reteach look like and sound like before you even implement that in your
I
classroom.
wonder if the monolingual teacher and dual language teachers are talking. Because if fourth grade's monolingual is growing at the rate that they are, maybe they have reteach opportunities they could share with that dual language teacher.
Yeah, this is really making me think of Bambrick's PLC process and those 4 questions that the district has really been pushing. And so I'm wondering if we kind of create a formal system to address those 4 questions, if that might help. I'm also thinking we need to create these assessments. We need to be talking about this data, but maybe we need to sit down at the beginning of each unit with teachers and map out which TEKs do we want to assess and when do we want to assess them, right?
Your high priority standards.
Yeah, definitely. So what are some needs? We kind of talked a little bit about that, but what are some needs that we're going to need to address as we move into this PLC process?
I think kind of what I just said with our high priority standards, you can't teach all 90 TEKs at the same level,
Right.
And just help teachers understand which ones are those, those priorities that we constantly have to assess, and that's really our PLCs, if we end up going that route, will really be around those standards.
Yeah, so we may need to do a professional development over digging into those lead forward report cards and figuring out, we know what the district high priority standards are, but what are our standards here on our campus? What about, we also kind of talked about, we don't know teachers' comfort levels with Quick Check. We may need to include a quick professional development over how to create a Quick Check.
They may be overthinking that, what it entails.
That whole process, exactly. Yeah, definitely. And then, Taryn, I know you're super organized and great. Would you be willing to create like a standard agenda template so that teachers would know what to expect every week? Perfect. I think that would really help us lead through that conversation. And then where can right, Taryn, thank you so much for meeting with me today. As you know, we had recently met and kind of seen that our students weren't growing the way that we wanted them to
Right.
grow based on our MAP scores.
Yes.
And we had kind of developed a plan with the rest of the team to really hone in on the PLC process and focus on Bambrick's 4 questions.
Yeah.
And so I kind of want to look over some of that data today and kind of see where we are with that and see hopefully some good results of that process.
Yes.
So, we started by sending out a survey to teachers, asking them kind of their thoughts on the PLC process. What was something you noticed from that survey?
I see that 60% of teachers responded favorably to the small group tracker, which is very good.
Yeah, definitely more than half.
Right.
I'm wondering why we're still at 60% though. I'm wondering what the barrier is.
I feel like there is there's an uncomfortable process with building that small group tracker, and I still feel like a lot of teachers don't know really how to create one.
Yeah.
And I feel like they think it takes a lot of time too.
Yeah.
From their class time. They're not seeing it as something that's valuable that they can do, right on the dime.
Yeah, I think we're still at the compliance phase with that, and we'll need more training going into next year to kind of move into the actual internalizing that and cementing that as an instructional practice. I agree. I noticed that 85% of teachers said that the training that we did, identifying our high priority knowledge and skills, and digging into those lead forward report cards, they've really found that valuable. So that's great.
That's wonderful. 85%. That's great.
Yes. And then teachers are really appreciating that as we're creating our big picture calendars at the beginning of every unit, that we're using those HPKSs to map out the quick checks that we're going to have and when we're going to assess and what skills we're going to assess.
That's really good.
Yeah. Did you notice anything else from that survey?
I noticed that 100% of teachers responded that they either agree or somewhat agree that the PLC process is effective. So that's a big step. Yes. There was pushback.
Yes, definitely. So I was really excited to see that too, because they were not excited about it at the beginning, and now they've really bought in and they see the value in the PLC process.
Which is great, because that's what we want them to do, see the value.
Definitely.
And what they're doing.
All right, so now I want to look at some of the student data, and I want to see if it was effective for our students as well. I kind of want to start with our monolingual students because those were where we had some real hot spots at the beginning. So at mid-year, in 3rd grade monolingual, only 48% of students had met their growth goal, and we were only seeing 84% growth.
Right.
And our goal is 60%, at least 60% of students, and then 120% growth. But at end of year MAP, 59% of students met their growth goal, so we were almost to that 60%, and we saw 112% growth, so almost 20%, 40% growth.
That's awesome.
Yes, that's very exciting.
That's awesome.
In 4th grade monolingual, it looks like students we didn't have quite the effectiveness there. At mid-year we had 61% growth, and at end of year we had 58.
So they slid back a little bit.
Yeah, so that's a grade level that we'll definitely want to continue to monitor. In 5th grade monolingual, at mid-year we had 46% growth, and at the end of year we had 67% growth. So that's super exciting.
Yeah, good.
And then so that was the students, and then they had 96% growth at mid-year, but at the end of year we saw 150% growth.
So good.
Yes. So I really want to work on, as we're moving into next school year and thinking about our back to school professional development plan and all of that, I think I really want to hone in on 4th grade, and let's kind of make sure that let's kind of dig into their quick checks and what those look like, and make sure we're kind of monitoring the right things. Yeah. And then 4th grade dual language was definitely a hotspot for us at mid-year. So 42% of students at mid-year had met their growth goal, and at end of year 47%. So we saw some growth, not as much as we want, but there's some growth. But the real win here is that at mid-year, the class had only grown by 38%, and by end of year they grew 107%. Yeah, so that was a real celebration.
Yeah, that's a real celebration for sure.
Yeah. So, and then 3rd grade dual language looked awesome as well, and so did 5th grade dual language. Lots of growth there. So I think that we can see that overall the PLC process is working. It's been effective, right? Definitely. What were some of the challenges that we saw with the PLC process?
I think holding PLCs can be kind of hard on
Yeah.
Friday
Yes.
because people often take off on that day.
Yeah,
So
definitely.
absences.
Yeah, we did have a lot of absences on those Fridays, and Fridays are just hard in general.
Yeah.
Teachers are tired.
Uh-huh.
I think next year, if we maybe think about moving those meeting days to Thursdays, I think that might help with that. That way we can make sure all teachers are engaged in
That'd
that
be good.
process. Yeah. I also noticed that we had a hard time getting to question 4, how will we extend the learning? And I think that you can see that in our data. Our quintile 1 and 2 kids grew the least out of everybody.
Yeah.
And so next year, I think we need to make it more of a priority. Maybe we can look at the timing in our agenda and things like that, to actually get to question 4 and make sure we're talking about how to extend that learning. Yeah. And then I think we need to focus more on how this changes our instructional practice overall.
Yeah.
I think we're really starting to have the buy-in of tracking the data, and now we need to look at how does this change our instructional practice. Something I've noticed when I'm walking through literacy classrooms is that there's still a lot of very direct teach.
Yes.
And
it's going a little bit too long.
It's going a little bit too long. Yeah. I think we need to kind of step back as the adults and let the kids do more of the reading and thinking. So that would be something to look at for our professional development plan going forward too.
Yeah, for sure.
So let's think about some things that we want to start, some things that we want to continue, and some things that we want to stop altogether. I think our stop altogether is holding meetings on Fridays.
Yes.
Right? I think we move those to Thursdays for sure.
Sure.
What are some things that we want to continue through this process?
We want to continue analyzing those high priority knowledge and skills.
Yes, that was very effective, and the teachers responded well to that as well. And we'll have a fresh new set of data once we get this year's STAR scores, so we can begin the year with that process.
And then, of course, the PLC process, discussing data. I think that's huge impact, made a huge impact.
Yeah, I think so too. We saw a lot of growth for sure. And then I think I also want to continue intentionally mapping out those CFAs as we're creating that big picture calendar, to make sure that we're assessing the right TEKs and that we know exactly when we're going to assess them. What about some things that we want to start?
PD over enrichment and how to extend the learning.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, that's a big area of growth for us.
Because we don't want those kids to be stagnant. Because when they're stagnant, or they either regress instead of going forward. Yeah,
I agree. I'm also thinking, I think we need some PD over science of reading aligned reading comprehension instruction. You know, we've done a lot with foundational skills. I think now we need to introduce some comprehension strategies. Sure. Yeah, definitely.
That'd be beneficial.
Yeah, I agree. Well, overall, I think the PLC process was super effective. Thank you so much for your help in getting this started and kind of helping us lead through and facilitating those. And I think that this is a practice that's really going to help our campus continue to grow as well. Sure. Yeah. Hey, thank you.